Hi everyone. This video is going to go over some of the things that I have found once I've graded your introduction and first body paragraphs to help you out. You need to be looking back in Canvas at those um, grading remarks so that you know what it is that you need to fix or that you need to make better. Some of you did a decent job where you've got most of the work done. There's just some minor corrections. Some of you, I feel, I don't know if you're just completely off task or just getting in something to get in, but you're not following what needs to be done. So I wanted to make sure that I just have this as an extra resource because these are things that we've talked about before. So this is going to look at your introduction, your thesis, and what you need for your body paragraphs, what you need to make sure that you include in each of those. So first thing off that I want to focus in on is your paper topic. Some of you are writing about random things about Shakespeare or about writing or about the time he lived in. That's not our paper topic at all. We've researched a couple of interesting facts to include in your introduction, but that doesn't mean that's what the paper is about. Okay, and so there was a question that needed to be answered, and that is, should Shakespeare be taught in high school? And your thesis needs to address that. That's why we read those articles. That's why we analyzed them. We've been working on them since March, the beginning of March. And so you needed to come up with a reason. So whether or not you agree or disagree, if you agree, you would state Shakespeare should be taught in schools because, and you state your three reasons. You should already have your reasons. We've done that in previous work. If you disagree, your topic is Shakespeare should not be taught in schools because of, and you state your three reasons. So that's your focus. That's your topic. If you did not do this or your topic is kind of off, you need to make sure that you go back and fix that, okay? For an introduction paragraph, some of you gave me one giant blob of intro and body paragraph, or you just gave me a body paragraph. An introduction is a paragraph all on its own. So that's a whole paragraph. So it's got to be more than 3 sentences, and it has to be separated from the body paragraphs. Okay, this is a paragraph all on its own. And its job, as you know or should know, is to capture the reader's attention. So this introduces what you're talking about. It makes them interested in the subject. That's why we looked up, or I had you look up interesting facts or some background information about Shakespeare, about his writing, or about his time. Because if we're writing about Shakespeare and writing about his works and writing about why it should or should not be included in schools, how are you going to introduce that? Well, that's why I had you guys research that. Here are some interesting facts. This is who Shakespeare is, and he's interesting or he isn't, and then that leads you into your thesis statement. And your thesis statement should contain those 3 reasons that I mentioned in the slide before of why or why not Shakespeare should be taught in schools. The other thing that some of you have some of this information, but it's very choppy. If I wrote choppy by your paragraph or in the notes, it's just that you maybe need to reorganize or add a few more words or sentences to make it sound like it's flowing. Because when you read it, you want it to make sure that it goes from one idea to the next as though you're talking to somebody. You're not just, when you speak to somebody or describe something to somebody, you're not jumping from, one story to another or what have you. You don't want to do that in your introduction. You want to make sure that it all flows together and it makes sense. And I have some examples to show you what that's going to look like. Your thesis statement. We've done thesis statements before. We've talked about it. You guys already should have looked at the previous note slide that I had up there for you on thesis statements and what those are. But your thesis statement is your driving force of your paper. It's going to tell everybody what it is that you're going to discuss about your topic. And I just went over with you again what that topic was. Shakespeare should or should not be taught in schools, and you were supposed to have 3 reasons. So you need a sentence, one sentence that is a statement, not a question, and not a multitude of statements. Some of you have a thesis because you highlighted it for me like I asked you to, but what you did is you made it 3 or 4 sentences long, including those reasons, but you need to in some way kind of combine all of those and make it one sentence, making sure that it does include your 3 reasons. Your introduction, along with your thesis, should not include the word I. You should never include any personal pronouns in this type of essay. So I know that it is your opinion, but you don't need to say it. Just say it. So instead of saying, like, I believe that Shakespeare is boring, don't say I believe, just state it. Shakespeare is boring, and this is why. You don't want to say, in this paper I will discuss, or I will show you. You don't need to do that, so you get rid of those words. If you're having a hard time trying to say what you need to say without using I, please make sure that you get a hold of me, show me what you got, and I can help you with that, okay? So you don't want to use I. Usually your thesis statement appears at the end of the introductory paragraph, but it can appear anywhere. And some of my better writing students, they have done that where it might be the first sentence or it might be in the middle. It depends, again, on how you want your paragraph to flow. But typically, again, especially for our freshman level, it usually appears at the end of the paragraph right before you start talking about your first topic. So that's okay if that's where you put it. It was difficult for me to identify some of your thesis statements because, again, in the worksheet, I had asked you to highlight it for me so I can see. And so it made it hard for me to understand if you knew, if I could see if you understood what your thesis was. So please make sure that you go back and do that for me. All right, here's an example of an introduction. This is actually from one of your classmates, and this has got your background information. It includes interesting facts, and in this sense, or in this case, I've highlighted what the thesis is. It's all one sentence, and I highlighted in different colors what the 3 reasons were. So he starts off with telling me who Shakespeare was. The only complaint here is it should be William Shakespeare. You always want to use the full name first. After that, you just use the last name. So it should say William Shakespeare is a very famous actor and playwright. And then he talks about some of his plays, talks about how many he wrote. So again, capturing our attention, saying, hey, this is a pretty great guy. However, that's some old stuff, and he particularly wrote his plays for just white dudes. And so his take on this is that Shakespeare should not be taught in schools. And his 3 reasons are: it doesn't appeal to some people of different ethnicities. Shakespeare was a white man when race and gender mattered. And many kids find it hard to understand today. My other complaint about this one is that you should not use contractions in a formal essay. Remember what I always say about contractions. Contractions are for pregnant women, not for essays. So make sure that you're spelling those items out. Another example from a classmate. They give some background information. However, I wanted you to see this. This is a decent intro, but I would like to see some more interesting facts here to make this introduction a little bit more interesting and to bulk it up a little bit. So to insert some of those things, to talk about, and again, William Shakespeare has lived on through stories and tales for centuries of, well-known people, common folk, royalty, and before talking about his stories, maybe list some interesting facts. But again, I highlighted this thesis, and this individual had 3 reasons, and those are highlighted in yellow, green, and blue. So Shakespeare should be taught in 9th grade curriculum because his stories are relevant. That's 1. They can appeal to many audiences. That's 2. And is a great way to teach students. That's 3. So notice again, this is a long, complex compound sentence that includes 3 reasons. They do not say, in this paper, I will tell you. They just state it. They state their position and they state their 3 reasons. So once you have your introductory paragraph and your thesis, that's all one paragraph. Then you're going to indent and begin with your first reason. That's your first body paragraph. And again, some of you just gave me giant blobs, so I'm not really sure where it starts. But your first body paragraph should just focus on reason number 1. Okay. Just like with a thesis, your paragraph, first one and second and third, need a topic sentence. This needs to be your own words. Excuse me. It's going to be what your paragraph's going to be all about. So your topic sentence should not be a quote. It should not be words from one of the articles. It's what you came up with your reason. So if I go back to this one, and her first topic here for her thesis is that his stories are still relevant. This individual is going to come up with a sentence that talks about his relevance. I don't know what she wants to say or what her focus is in regards to that relevance, but she needs to come up with a topic sentence that's her own words and what the entire paragraph is going to be about. So once you have that, then you need to, I've got that already, contains your first reason from your thesis. You need to have your quotes from the text. We've been using several articles, again, since the beginning of March, since were quarantined, gave you all of those. They're on your Canvas. They're linked in some of your other worksheets. So, and some of you have already picked out your quotes. But if she's talking about in this focus that Shakespeare is relevant to today, she needs to find a quote that helps to support that. In using your quotes, they need to be introduced. They need to list the title, the author, or the organization and include a citation, and that's called a tag: title, author, and genre. So if she were using an article, it would say, in the article, give the name, where it's by, and then state the quote. After that quote, you need to reword what this is all about. Okay, you need to bring it together. You need to tie it to what your topic sentence is. And then once you've done that twice within that paragraph, you need to make sure that you have a concluding sentence that wraps everything up. And your concluding sentence is usually more than one sentence, which we'll go over. So here's an example of a beginning of a body paragraph. Beginning. So this isn't the whole paragraph. This is not completed. This individual did a very decent job of creating their body paragraph, but I'm just showing you the beginning. Okay, so this would be a paragraph that would continue. But the yellow that is highlighted, that's their topic sentence. Shakespeare does not really speak to people of different ethnicities and races. He already stated that in his thesis statement, but this is what we're going to focus on in this paragraph. We're not going to talk about the other two reasons, just this particular one. And here he's got in the article, has the title of the article, has the author. The author describes Shakespeare and is not appealing to students, and then gives the quote. Okay, so the green part here, this is our quote, which again contains what's called tag. We've gone over this. Title, author, genre. The blue is the citation. Okay, and it needs to be done correctly. Only thing here is we don't need this comma. That comma needs to go. All right, but you have your, we're not ending our quote, even though the quote may be over, the sentence isn't. So you're going to put a comma. You have parenthesis, the author's last name. If you don't know what the author is, then you use, again, like the company or the group, and then the page number or the paragraph number, end parenthesis, and then make sure that the period goes after the parenthesis. The pink is this individual's own wording. Okay, what they think about it. Shakespeare should not be taught in schools because cultures and races do not like or approve of his work. So it's tying their topic with this quote, and this is their own words. They should have also added why here. Okay, this doesn't need to be just one sentence. Sometimes you need to explain a little bit more. And I had made that comment in that individual's paper on their Canvas. So your own words should be, usually one or two sentences, depending on what it is that you have to make sure that you're connecting. If I feel like you haven't connected all the way, you're going to lose points from that because, again, something is missing. Your paragraph is going to continue. Oops. And it's going to contain another quote and another comment. It's going to be just like this. But it's going to continue. So once this individual had added why here, they're going to then, say that another quote or another article by so-and-so indicated, give the quote and then comment on that, and then go into their concluding sentence. Here's an example of the end of a body paragraph. So this doesn't have any citations in it. This individual, this is a different person, doesn't relate to the one we just looked at, but they're making their own comment about the whole thing, and it wraps up the paragraph, focus of the whole paragraph. So notice that it's multiple sentences. They had a lot to say on this. And so once you've given your topic sentence and you've given your quote and explanation and you've given another quote and explanation of that quote, then you need to wrap up your focus in that paragraph. And that's what this particular slide does. So you need to look at that. You need to read what this individual has done. So I'm not going to read it to you word for word, but they have really wrapped everything together and it makes sense. It flows nicely. Had this individual just given me one sentence, it wouldn't have been enough. And I would have been like, okay, well, what else? What's going on? I'm missing something. All right, your citations, those are after, again, the quotes. You're going to use them after the quotes, and this tells me where you got the information from what article. And after the quote, like I said before, you're going to use your author's last name and the page number. There is no comma in between. And again, I didn't correct that in that slide because I wanted you guys to see that, and I made that correction for you just in speaking. If there is no author, use a group name like the Chicago Tribune or the Women's Health Association, something of that nature. So you're not just going to say no author, you're not going to leave it blank. In all of those articles, there is either a group name or an author that you can utilize. If there's no page number, you need to use the paragraph number. And so that might be something that in some of those articles, it'll tell you chunk or tell you paragraph, but you may need to actually go in and count the paragraphs where you found that particular quote. The period goes after the citation. I already mentioned that in the previous slide. So you don't want to put the period in the quote. It goes after the citation. So here's an example. So this individual was introducing a quote. There's your quote. And notice the beginning of a quote, even though it's in the middle of the sentence, it's capitalized. Here's our comma because the sentence isn't over. Even though this quote in the article may have had a period at the end, we're not done with it. So you put a comma, and then again, here is your parenthesis, author's last name, no comma, the page number or the paragraph number, and then the parenthesis period at the end. Okay, this other sentence just shows if we needed to utilize the group name rather than the author, and if it was a paragraph rather than a page number. Okay. And finally, some things that you want to make sure that you're doing. Okay, your second and third body paragraph that you guys are working on this week should follow the same format and focus on the second and third reasons. Okay, so your second body paragraph is going to talk about the second reason that you've listed in your thesis statement, in your worksheets that we've been doing. The third body paragraph is going to focus on only the third reason. If you submit and if you've already submitted and you need to go back and fix this, you need to do that, because when I grade these over the weekend and I noticed that everything I've talked about in this slideshow was not done correctly, you're not going to receive full credit. Just because you do it doesn't mean that you're doing it correctly. You guys need to look at this and soak everything in on what it is you're supposed to be doing. Nothing that I'm teaching you in regards to this essay or telling you is new. We've done this before. I've talked to you about it before. I've gone all over this before. We've written essays before and paragraphs and CRQs that include all of this. So if you're not doing it and just getting, something done to do, your grade is going to reflect that. I'm sorry. We still need to go over what a counterclaim and conclusion is next week. So it's important that you make sure that this first part and second part, meaning the intro and the first body, the second and third body, is done correctly, because we still have two other aspects of our essay to go over before we start actually putting it all together. So you need to go back and make corrections in the work that we've already done, because I need to see that in the final draft. Once we are done and I get your final drafts, if it's exactly the same stuff that you've turned in thus far and you've made no corrections, your grade is going to reflect that. So a part of learning is the revision aspect of your paper. Don't forget that, okay? And how do I know if I did anything wrong? Well, look at my comments that I've made in Canvas. There are minor things that we'll go over again in editing, but if there were major things that I had an issue with, I made a comment. So if you have a question about what I've written, make sure that you ask me. Some of you have already done that. So, but be specific. Don't just say, why did I get that grade? Okay, what grade, on what assignment, and what specifically did I say? Did you look at the comments before you email me? If you email me and say, I got a 15 out of 20 and you said that I needed to do this. What do you mean by that? Then I can specifically help you, and we can correct that so that your final essay grade will reflect that learning process and making sure that you do everything correctly. Okay, so this will be up on Canvas, and you guys can look at this over and over again. Hopefully, this has helped, and I want to see some of the things that I've gone over with you today. I'd like to see that reflected in your work. Hope you're doing well. Continue to work hard. Good luck, God bless, and have fun. And don't forget, as always, spread peace, love, and joy.